I'm going to say something that will get me a lot of disagreement from a certain kind of person. I'm going to say it anyway, because it's the most important thing in this episode, and I want it in your head before anything else. Being compliant is not the same as being secure. You can be fully, gloriously, audit-passingly compliant, with every box checked and a certificate hanging on your wall, and get absolutely destroyed by an attacker on Tuesday. It happens constantly. Compliant and breached is not a contradiction. It's a regular occurrence. Hold on to that, because by the end of this episode, I want you to understand exactly why. Welcome back. I'm the architect. Last episode, we sorted the vault and found that some data, the regulated tier, is so sensitive that holding it summons lawyers. Today, we meet the lawyers. Compliance, the law of the land. Let's start with what compliance actually is, without dread. Compliance means following the rules that someone with authority has imposed on you and how you handle data. That's it. Some external power, a government, an industry body, a contract, has written down a set of requirements. You are obligated to meet them. And at some point, someone is going to check. Why does this exist at all? Because left entirely alone, a meaningful number of organizations would protect your personal data exactly as much as they felt like, which historically rounds to not very much. Security costs money and generates no obvious revenue. And so without a forcing function, it quietly loses every budget fight forever. Compliance is the forcing function. It is society walking into the room and saying, you don't get to decide on your own whether protecting people's medical records is worth the effort. We've decided for you. Here's the floor. Clear it or pay. Let me introduce the regulations you'll actually hear named, because these come up constantly, and you shouldn't feel lost when they do. GDPR, I'm sure you've heard that one in the news. The General Data Protection Regulation, Europe's privacy law, and the one with the longest reach, because it protects European residents no matter where the company holding their data sets lives. It's built on a genuinely radical idea that you, the human being, own your personal data, and the company is merely borrowing it. It demands you have a real reason to hold someone's data, that you guard it, and mark this one, that you tell people promptly when you lose it. GDPR put a clock on breaches, and its fines are not symbolic. They're written as a percentage of global annual revenue, which is a number large enough that it makes the actual boardroom flinch, which was precisely the point. HIPAA, the American law governing health information, the PHI we met last episode. If you're a hospital, an insurer, anyone touching medical data in the United States, HIPAA dictates how you protect it, and the penalties for losing it are severe. PCI DSS. This one is a personal thorn in my side, but anyway, I digress. The payment card industry data security standard. The interesting one, because it isn't a government law at all. It's a rulebook that major credit card companies impose by contract on anyone who wants to process their cards. Break it, and the government doesn't fine you, but the card networks can revoke your ability to take a payment at all, which, for most businesses, is a more terrifying threat than any court. There are more. SOX for financial reporting, that stands for Sarbanes-Oxley. CCPA out of California. I don't remember what it stands for off the top of my head, but suffice to say, it's the California equivalent of GDPR. A different alphabet for every industry and region. You do not need to memorize them. You need exactly two things. One, the awareness that whatever data you hold, there is probably a regulation about it. Two, the instinct to find out which. Now let's talk about how compliance feels from the inside, because the texture matters. Compliance work is, to be honest, mostly tedious. It's documentation, proving you do the thing, not just doing the thing. Auditors arrive, And an auditor's entire job is professional skepticism. They don't take your word that the door is locked. They walk over and jiggle the handle because they want to see the lock, see the log of who has the key, and watch you turn it. Underestimated by roughly everyone in the building, right up until the morning they actually show up. In the kingdom, compliance is the royal legal code, enforced by the king's auditors, who ride in periodically to confirm that you're obeying the realm's laws on how the common folks' records are kept. And here's the cultural truth of it. Nobody loves an auditor. The auditor doesn't swing a sword or repel a single attack, but the auditor is the reason the kingdom's protections don't quietly erode to nothing the moment money gets tight. Tedious, but heavily load-bearing. Which brings us back to around where we started, and to the most important idea in this whole episode. Compliance is a floor. It's not a ceiling. A regulation is a minimum standard, written by a committee, agreed to by many parties, and therefore, by absolute mathematical certainty, out of date the day it's published, and aimed at the average case, not your specific enemy. It tells you the least you must do to be allowed to keep operating. It does not, cannot, tell you everything you should do to be safe. This is why compliant and breached live so comfortably together. A company treats the regulation as the goal. They check every box. They earn the certificate. They declare victory and stop. But the attacker did not read the regulation and feel discouraged. The attacker went looking for the gap between what the rulebook required and what the real difference demanded. And that gap is exactly where they live. The checklist said encrypt the database. So they encrypted the database. And the breach walked in through the employee laptop the checklist never mentioned. So here's the lesson. And it's a mindset, not a fact. Compliance is the rent you pay to stay in business. Security is what actually keeps you alive. Pay the rent, but never confuse it with being safe. The organizations that get this right use compliance as a baseline and then keep going, because they're managing actual risk. Their real likelihood times impact from 2 episodes back, not just clearing a legal bar. The ones that get it wrong treat the certificate as the finish line, and they are, statistically, simply waiting their turn. Your quest objective for this episode is a little different, because this one's about noticing the machinery around you. Next time some service makes you click accept a privacy policy, or asks you for consent to use your data, or emails you, sometimes sheepishly, to disclose that there's an incident involving your information, recognize what you're seeing. This is compliance operating in the wild. That is GDPR and its relatives reaching through the screen. Someone, somewhere, is following a rule because the law required it. And you are the person the rule exists to protect. You've just started seeing the legal code that's been running underneath everything the whole time. We've now built something solid. We know what we're protecting, the 3 laws. We know how to decide what matters, risk. We know what our treasure is actually worth, the data tiers, and we know the legal floor we're obligated to clear, compliance. There's exactly 1 piece of the map left before this arc is complete. We've spent all our time looking inward, at ourselves, our data, our rules. It's time to finally turn around and look at the people on the other side of the wall. Next time, the threat landscape. Who's actually out there? What do they want? And why some of them want very, very different things than what you'd expect. We're drawing the map of the enemy. I'm the architect. We'll talk soon.